And cancer cells that have been tested, we know that they have something like 2 to 3 times more insulin inside of them, or insulin growth factor inside of them, than healthy cells do. They use 5 times more glucose than healthy cells do, even though they only produce 5% of the ATP that the healthy cells do. What's ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. What is that? It's the energy currency of the cells. That's why cancer patients waste away. It's that condition called cachexia, because cancer cells are incredibly greedy and ravenous for glucose, but they're incredibly inefficient at turning it into energy that the body can actually use. So since all that energy is being stolen away by the cancer cells from the healthy cells, there's nothing left. And they don't produce the ATP that the healthy cells do, so people turn into skeletons from cachexia. So the best way to shut that off is to don't feed it. Because when you look at the fact that cancer cells have 6 to 15 times more insulin receptor sites than healthy cells do, that means because they have to have the sugar or they don't do well. And so when you look at the level of sugar that's in the American diet, and what do you see if a cancer patient's wired up to anything in the hospital? What are they wired up to?
Glucose.
Yeah, glucose. I mean, it's throwing gasoline on the fire. I mean, I can tell you some stories that there was one gentleman that we actually almost got out of the hospital just by, because the guy was dying, he was given less than a week to live from cachexia. He had melanoma that metastasized to his spine, his hip, and his brain. And I didn't even know the guy. His wife called me up. They happened to live not too far from me. And she told me the story, and I said, well, you got to get him out of there, because I wasn't very optimistic. And long story short was, I gave him my bones, my bones. I have bones. Like you all have bones, right?
Oh, yes.
All right, you have bones. So bone broth soup with miso paste and seaweed vegetables became the broth, and the smoothies, the cherry smoothies. Colostrum, fat, egg yolks. She made this stuff at home, brought it to the hospital, and they said, yeah, you can feed your husband, he's not going to make it anyway. So he took this stuff, he walked out of the hospital, gained 90% of his weight back, and lived 3 more months until he got some pain, and I said, don't take morphine. I'll get into that in a little bit. Don't take morphine, because morphine will suppress your immune system. And it's also going to fill up your opiate receptor sites where your endorphins have to travel. That's what naltrexone's all about. Don't take morphine, take tramadol if you have to take a painkiller. Well, I left the country, I was in Australia, and I found out when I came home, he just died on Easter Sunday, because he went back to the hospital and they loaded him up with morphine and sugar. All over again. Right back to square one. Because the doctors told his wife that if he wasn't allowed to do what he was medically wanting to do, that he would discharge him and her as a patient. I said, it was the best thing he could have done for him. Because he killed him. So no refined carbohydrates. I mean, here's an interesting study on the lower